Hi everybody, DUGROZ here with DUGROZ Reports. Welcome to another episode of Frugal Points, the series where I drive in my car and talk to you about points, miles, cashback, and more. Today we're going to talk about the Pay Yourself Back feature on the Chase Aeroplan card, and more specifically, I'm going to give a defense of why using that Pay Yourself Back feature on the Aeroplan card makes sense for me and for others who have a similar travel style. Before I dive in on this particular channel, we talk about finding epic value, including, but not limited to, credit card rewards for the average American. If that sounds interesting to you, please click the thumbs up button and please subscribe to this channel. Let's dive in. The Chase Aeroplan card has a feature that allows you to pay yourself back on travel up to 200,000 Aeroplan points per year. The ratio at which you pay yourself back is 1.25 cents per point. So if you take 200,000 points times 1.25, you get 250,000. Move the decimal 2 places to convert dollars to pennies, and you've got $2,500 worth of travel per year. What is paying yourself back? Well, basically you're erasing those travel charges. So to use an example, let's say you go on vacation and you take a train somewhere, and it's a $100 train ride, and it codes as travel. Normally you would need 10,000 points to wipe out that $100 worth of travel, but you can go into your Aeroplan, the Chase app or website, click a few buttons, and you'll only end up using 8,000 points to pay for that $100 travel charge. So it's just wiping out the travel charges. It's a different way to pay for travel. Now I want to do a little bit of math, but first I need to give you an assumption, and I'll do the calculations of how much money it saves, and then during the second half of the video, I'm going to answer what I think are probably common objections to this. First, the disclaimer. What I'm about to say only works if you have a philosophy of doing points and miles that is either the same as mine or at least kind of similar to mine. And by that I mean the thing you value the most is getting travel that is either free or fairly close to free. If your main goal is getting the highest amount of cents per point possible because you have enough cash on hand to cover all the little things on a vacation, then yeah, I'm going to admit right up front, you can get a better value saving those Chase points and using them for something else. Alright, so now to do the math. In my case, I want to have my vacation be totally free and paid for with the hobby. So I'm always looking for ways to figure out how to cover those last few dollars, the last $500, the last $700, the last $800, whatever. So things like you eat a meal at the restaurant inside your hotel, you charge it to your room, then how do you cover that with points? There's really not a lot of ways to do that. This is one of the few ways that I know of. Or the subway, the train, the taxi, the Uber, the boat ride, the museum that codes as travel. Some do, some don't. It has to code as travel, but as much as possible, rather than just taking cash, I'd like to use the Aeroplan Pay Yourself Back trick, and here's why. So, because I insist that travel must pay for itself out of the hobby, if I don't use something like Aeroplan, the only other option is to use penny points, to cash out Chase, Wells Fargo, City points, or something similar at a penny per point. I don't have enough sign-up bonuses. I don't have enough pure cash back going on to cover everything. If I were to cover $2,500 a year of travel, which I'm pretty sure I will, there's enough miscellaneous expenses. If I were to cover $2,500 a year of travel, I would have to cash out 250,000 points, 250,000 points. So that would be the equivalent of, say, $2,500 worth of just plain cash money. Not let's say, it is that equivalent. Now, the math works out based on a transfer bonus, and historically, over the last 2 to 3 years, Chase has offered a 20% bonus when transferring points to Aeroplan at least twice a year. Also, the card itself gives you a 10% bonus when transferring from Chase to Aeroplan, as long as it's in increments of at least 50,000 points. So if you can do a little bit of planning ahead, wait for the 20% transfer bonus, effectively you're getting a 1.3 transfer bonus as long as you can do it in increments of at least 50,000 points. There is a cap of a 250,000 points transferred in that manner for the extra 10% built-in bonus for Aeroplan card holders. So if you do the math, what does it take to get that full $2,500 worth of paid yourself back travel? Well, you'd have to end up with 200,000 Aeroplan points, and doing the math backwards, at a 1.3 bonus, you would need 154,000 Chase points. So 154,000 Chase points times 1.3 becomes 200,000. Then you use those at 1.25 cents per point to get your $2,500 worth of travel that you can pay yourself back on. If you take the 1.3 times the 1.25 as a net cents per point, you're getting 1.625 cents per point on this travel, which isn't as good as using transfer partners most of the time, and certainly not as good as first or business class aspirational travel, where you're frequently getting 5 to 10 to 15 cents per point. Maybe not frequently, but at least you can. Definitely not as good, but 1.67 is a whole lot better than 1.0 cents per point if you were doing penny points. So here's how the math works out. You're cashing out 154,000 Chase points to get to your goal, which, again, if you were doing penny points, would have a raw cash value of 1,540, whereas to cover it with penny points, you would have to have 2,500. So if you take the 2,500 minus 1,540, because again, we're using the assumption that penny points are the only other choice, that's $960. For the sake of fairness, we need to take the annual fee into consideration, and the Aeroplan card has an annual fee of $95. So on the net, that's $865. So given my assumptions and rules I've set in place for how I play the game, the Aeroplan card is saving me $865 a year per card. If you have two players and you both have the Aeroplan card, you're both gonna do this to max out $5,000 of miscellaneous travel a year, then you would double that. But for the sake of the rest of this video, $865 a year. So that's how you save $865 by having the Aeroplan card. And I could just stop the presentation there, but I'd like to continue with some common objections. Objection number one: you're not earning 3x when you do this kind of spend because you're putting on the Aeroplan card. Unless it's unless it's grocery or dining, you're only earning 1x. Well, that's true. You're only earning 1 point per dollar, but considering the redemption and how much you would have to earn or value the points at, it's still worth doing. So if you think the difference between earning 1x and 3x, because the City Strata Premier earns 3x on miscellaneous travel. The Wells Fargo Autograph earns 3x on various kinds of miscellaneous travel, not all. The Chase Sapphire Reserve earns 3x on miscellaneous travel. So we're talking the difference between 2x and, the difference between 3x and 1x, which is 2x. Well, I don't have it in front of me right now, but if you're willing to take my word for it, I did the math offline, and to overcome the amount that you would have to value those points at, because you're saving, $865 a year, which we could reasonably translate into a certain number of points, you would have to be averaging more than 12 cents per point to make that work out. And just to clarify, I'm talking averaging, which means, if sometimes you're getting 2 or 3 cents per point, sometimes you're going to have to get 20 to 25 cents per point. If you're doing that and can beat this strategy good on you. But I can say with confidence, I'm not averaging 12 cents per point with my Chase points. So don't worry about the fact you're only earning 1x instead of 3x. Actually, it's kind of nice that at least you're double dipping a little bit. If you were just to use like a portal or something like that, you wouldn't dip at all. Second objection, well, yeah, but just to do this, you have to pay a $95 annual fee. I've already taken that into consideration with the math, so that's not a very good objection. Next objection, well, there's a 200,000 point per year limit, so you really can't do it very much. Okay, that's a true statement, but seems like kind of a straw man argument, because even if you're only doing it on the first $2,500 worth of miscellaneous travel expenses, it's still value worth doing. So remember, we're not using this to replace, a Hyatt Place where you can get 2 cents per point or more. We're not using this to replace moving points to Aeroplan, then using it for Lufthansa and getting 5, 10, 12 cents per point. We're using this for the last $2,500 of your spend that you would have been cashing out points for anyway. And if you're in 2-player mode, you can double that 200,000 limit per year. Next objection. Oh man, you have to add another credit card. That's just one more card to keep track of. Well, again, that is a true statement, but I'm willing to keep track of one more card if it saves me more than $800 a year. So for me, that's not really a concern. Next objection. You have to be moderately deep in the Chase ecosystem to do this. Yes, that's a valid objection. If you have no Chase cards and you're starting this whole trick from scratch, you're not going to really, be able to set this up very quickly. Now, this doesn't apply to everyone, but in my case, I'm already very deep in the Chase ecosystem. I already have a Chase Sapphire Preferred or Reserve. Sometimes I have a Reserve, sometimes I have a Preferred. I product change them back and forth as the situation dictates. I already have a Chase Ink Unlimited. I already have a Chase Ink Cash. I can get 5X on things like Staples, Office Depot, cable, internet, etc. I already have, a Freedom Flex, so I can do the 5X rotating category thing. So that doesn't really apply in my case. Now, another objection I've heard that's sort of an offshoot or tangent of that is, yeah, but your earnings aren't very good. You could just get a 5% cash back card and earn way better than this anyway. And then, a 5X card at 1 cent per point is a whole lot better than a 1.5 or 3X card at 1.625 cents per point. And that's true, but I'm already doing the 5% on lots of things. I take full advantage of the Freedom Flex and my OG Freedoms rotating categories. I'm willing to go to Staples and buy gift cards now and then with my ink, so I'm already getting 5X quite a lot. Now, if we want to get really deep in the woods, we would have to figure out how that all breaks down, how often I'm getting 5X, how often I'm getting 3X, how often I'm getting 1.5X, and come up with some sort of average. So that objection would only apply if somebody's getting 5% cash back on everything. And maybe you are, and if you are, great. But I'm a little skeptical. Also keep in mind, spend is finite. You can't have infinite spend unless you're doing manufactured spending. So, I question, the person who says they get 5% on everything and then they make sure they spend enough on that last 5% to cover all your little meals and miscellaneous things that you're doing on vacation. Now, maybe if you're a small business owner and you're running $500,000 through cards a year, that's true. But if you're a normal guy who can run 50 to 60,000 of non-manufactured spend through cards a year, I really doubt you're getting 5% cash back on everything. And if you are, great, congrats. Next objection, you have to keep the Chase Sapphire Preferred or the Chase Ink Preferred or the CSR plus the Aeroplan to get that going. Yep, that's true, because you have to have something that allows you to transfer to Aeroplan when you have those transfer bonuses. But I would have either the CSP or the CSR anyway, So I'm not adding cards to my portfolio. In fact, before I even knew about the pay yourself back, before it was even an option, I had that. So I didn't include the annual fee of those additional cards in my calculations because I would have it anyway, because I would want to transfer to British, I would want to transfer to Hyatt, I would want to transfer to United occasionally. So I would want to use the portal occasionally. So it's something I had anyway. Last objection, at least that I can think of, well, what about just using the Chase portal? Well, there's two lines of thought. If you have a Sapphire Preferred or an Ink Preferred, you're getting 1.25x. Well, 1.25 is less than 1.625. 1.5 is less than 1.625. Also, with the Aeroplan method, you're paying the hotel or airline directly, so you can still get any sort of status bonus. You can to a certain degree with airlines, but not at all with hotels. Same thing with rental cars, or not the same thing, but kind of transitioning to a different line of thinking. Some people will say, well, I would rather deal with the airline, hotel, rental car company directly in case there's a problem. With the Aeroplan trick, you can do that. You don't have to talk to the people at Chase or whatever portal you're using. And then keep in mind, with a portal, you're not earning any points on the purchase. Yes, 1 Aeroplan point per dollar is not a lot, but at least it's something. It's better than a portal. So it's not really fair to use the argument of, well, you could just use a portal instead. And then last of all, answer to that argument is, how am I going to use a portal to book a random boat tour in Sweden? Or the ferry in Pensacola, Florida that takes me to an island with a historical fort? Or how am I going to pay for the Hoover Dam parking lot using the Chase portal? Or, to use another example, when we were in London in 2023, the subway, the double-decker buses, they all counted as travel. Uber and Lyft count as travel, and we use that quite a lot in Washington, D.C. Can't use a portal for that. So I think the Aeroplan trick meets the portal, at least in every category, and in some cases outperforms the portal. So again, just to summarize, if you're someone who says, I'm going to take $10,000 a year out of my family budget, put it in a savings account, and use that for all the little things that you can't pay for otherwise, and all I need to do is get 2 cents per point on my Hyatt hotels and 10 cents per point on my international business class flights, and that's your biggest concern, is getting as many cents per point as possible, then this doesn't really apply to you. I will admit that. You're probably not the intended audience. But if you're someone that is like, a middle-aged dad who has 2, 3, 4 kids, and you just want to take your kids on a nice vacation, and you're frustrated with the cost of meals, so you're willing to eat in the hotel and charge to the room and pay yourself back on those, and you want to be able to cover the museum parking lot, you want to be able to cover the ferry, you want to be able to cover the train, this is perfect for you, because if you were going to spend $2,500 on all those kind of things anyway, or hotels where the cash rate is low, less than 2 cents per point, this is a perfect fit. So it would be a good fit for more of a budget-minded solo traveler as well, or at least somebody who would occasionally be willing to pay cash for a hotel. Put comments down below. Let me know what you think of this concept. I will try my best to answer each question individually. Again, please like and subscribe. And I will mention briefly, there is no referral for the Aeroplan card, unfortunately, so I don't have any sort of link to share with you. But thank you for those of you who have asked. And as always, may your spending be frugal, and may your points be plenteous. Have a good one.